Welcome back to the Smugglers Den, lucky episode 13. I'm your host, Tiny Grimes, and I want to thank, before we start, swdestiny.com for hosting the Smugglers Den. They're also hosting the Tabletop Simulator Tournament Season 1. It's going on right now that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. I also want to thank Broken Egg Games. You can go there, do your checkout at the end, put TG Games in your discount code coupon box to help out the show a little bit. And also, you can go to Patreon, Tiny Grimes. We got all kinds of cool discussions happening over there. I'm updating the tier list every week. And I want to thank a couple people who have been subscribing. So we have Nicholas, Tyler, Michael, Matthew, Matt, Eric, Josh, a whole bunch of other people. And John, thanks so much for coming in at the Darth Vader level. And so let's get on to the show. I'll bring in Jason Flanzer. What's happening, Jason?
Boom! JB Flans, as he likes to call me when he likes to mock me. That's me.
What? I would never say that.
How are you doing today, Tiny?
So, Jason, how's your week been with Destiny? You been playing much?
I've been playing online, and I have not been playing much on the tabletop. I don't know why I'm being so sluggish about it, but things keep popping up. Wednesdays have just been a bad day for me, so unfortunately my life has gotten in the way of me getting some actual card time. However, very excited playing online, playing in probably about 10 open games, and then 2 of the tournament games in the past week for the Tabletop Simulator Tournament.
Nice. That's what I love about the simulator. It's not a deterrent to getting people to buy anything. It's just helping out when you can't get to the store. For those poor people out there who can't get their product, it's a great way to test stuff. I, too, have played so many games on the simulator this week. I did get to the shop on Monday, not on Wednesday, which made me feel bad. I love Paper Heroes games, but John wasn't able to come out, and it's a lot more fun to go with a friend. So we went up to Fire and Dice on Monday for a tournament. And Jason, this was my first tournament that just didn't go well. Only 5 people ended up showing up. They ran a game night kit anyway. I won my first round. I lost my second round to, every now and then you lose the dice, right? It just happens. It's a dice game. So I lost the dice. And the third round, I had done the math, and I was like, okay, if I get paired up against John and I beat him, I win the tournament. So that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. And so the pairings go up, and I'm like, what? Tiny Grimes with the bye. What the? So I got to go 2-1 because I got the stinking bye, which put me at a tie for second, which on strength of schedule put me down to third. Fire and Dice decided to only prize out the top 2, and so there I was driving like an hour and 15 minutes to get nothing, which I gotta say, didn't feel all that great, Jason. Just didn't feel that great.
Yeah, when you only have 5 players, it is tough, and the store probably should have given some stuff to people, but what are you going to do?
Yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the turnout was so low. We've been getting so many people at Paper Heroes that I just kind of had taken it for granted that on a random weeknight you could get 15. But I think it's more that we've been building that community, and this is a new community that's trying to build. So hopefully they'll be successful over there and really build up a good following as well. It'd be great to have every night of the week a 15-man tournament going on in LA. That's like the dream scenario to me.
Yeah, I think that we're going to be able to at least average 3 or 4, and I know that there's been some new stores popping up, and I actually know that down south of where you are in the beach cities, there's actually a pretty strong community, so getting that together is going to be a pretty excellent little task.
By the beach communities, you mean Long Beach?
Yeah, like, okay. Like you're like Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, Long Beach, Huntington Beach.
Because that's where I am.
Yeah, correct. I know, but also south of you, like Huntington Beach, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Long Beach. I mean, you are the top of them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I pretty much consider anything south of the airport all the way down to where the 405 and the 5 connect. That's like the beach cities.
Wow, that is a long stretch, but that's fair. That's a fair.
But they all have beach in their name, so I guess it's just accurate.
That is a fair point. So you said you did not make it out to a tournament. Do you want to talk at all about how your tabletop simulator tournament's going?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've played 2 games now. I think we both have played both our first 2 rounds. We were both victorious in both. I played 2 really good opponents actually in both rounds. The first game I played against Dooku Kylo, and it's no surprise, or I guess it's not like a secret. I'm playing Bala Django Stormtrooper with 2 dice on Bala.
One trick pony. What did I say?
What did you say?
I said I called you out as a one trick pony. That's all. It's no big deal.
I'm not one pony. I play tons of decks. This is just the one. I actually haven't played with this deck in a really long time. I was like, I should submit it for the tabletop simulator. So I made some untested changes, threw it in the mix, and I think my untested changes have turned out okay.
What are they? Let's go through your deck in all its entirety to prepare your opponents for you.
One of my untested changes was logistics, and I really liked it. Really have liked it. It's really pushed the deck further. Getting it to, if you get to like turn 2 and you've got 4 resources additional on the board, like in total, so you've gained 2 resources the previous turn. It's very, very good. Yeah, so
for sure,
it has been really nice to have the logistics in there. But obviously, it is a dead card late game often, but it is what it is.
Boy, your opponents now know you have logistics, and they will just wreck you because of it.
They will play around logistics. I electroshock that.
That would be the dream, wouldn't it? That would be the dream.
So that game, it was just pretty standard. Polished off Kylo at a fair pace, nearly losing Bala in the process, and then being able to pop Mr. Dooku with a real big pop. That's how you need to deal with him. I think it was like a 3 jetpack and then like a 2 gun, so he took 5 damage, so he took 4, and it feels good to hit him really hard because he does actually have low health. As impossible as that guy is to kill, if you can hit him real hard, he's really feeling it. He's still an old man back there.
Yeah.
So
as someone who plays a lot of Dooku, there's nothing worse than turn 1 when your opponent goes jetpack on Django, gets the god roll, and goes 7 Dooku, and you're just like, come on, man. Come on, this is not supposed to happen. Now Dooku's dead.
But here's the thing, though. Sometimes they do that, and then like they try to kill him for the next 2 turns, and they actually can't.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
they usually have
the
a
real
backup muscle to follow up, and he dies. It's so sad.
Backup muscle is an incredibly good card.
Yeah, so here's a little pro tip that I've been trying to do. I'm trying desperately to put Surgical Strike into every light side deck I make. 1 copy. Just for backup muscle, only for backup muscle. Interesting tech.
I haven't followed that tech myself, but it's certainly not impossible. You could actually do some pretty nasty stuff with it, too. You could do a 2 and a 1 die and kill a Millennium Falcon as well.
Yep. You can do some good stuff with it. It could be Hyperloop tech and that backup muscle tech as well.
Mm-hmm. And then my second game I played against Vader Raider, and that was a really tough game. The guy opened with what him and I both considered pretty much a perfect hand, having tools to both kill my guys as well as defeat any dice that I had. And turn 1, he deflected. Turn 1, he 4-striked, and then he gained resources and played 2 backup muscles. So at the beginning of my second turn, he killed Bala.
Oh, my. And then
so
you lost.
1 die Django. And a 1 die Stormtrooper. I think Django had an upgrade. I did not lose.
Then you lost.
From there, I was able to mitigate some damage, do some good, and actually halfway through the game, like the whole game froze.
Oh,
It's really odd, and we're like freaking out. I'm like, he's like, wait, I can move the pieces, and I'm like, can you move them into a bag? And he's like, yes. I'm like, put everything in a bag, and we'll open a new game.
Oh,
and that's what we did.
Goodness.
So it ended up working out.
You know where that doesn't happen, Flanzer? Is when you play in real life.
I know.
I've never once had my board freeze in real life. Not even 1 time.
I did 1 time, but
oh, really?
It was in Canada. It was just really cold out.
See, I play in SoCal where it's nice and toasty.
But alas, in the end, Django was able to pull it home, get some upgrades on him. He had I think I had 1 really good roll before, or I think Bala was able to chip in some extra damage before he died, getting Vader down to like 7, and then Django over the next 2 turns was able to kill him before Django went down, and then the Tusken Raider got reversaled twice for 3 damage.
Oh!
And much the game.
You got 2 reversals? You're the greediest person ever.
I love that card. I think it's such a card.
One,
it's like such a bad card, but it's such a good Good
I
card
think
too.
I cut it from my list. I had one. I can't remember if I have one or not because it's so amazing when it works. But I just rarely have extra money floating around with that deck because I'm playing upgrades and removal. It's like getting 3 is so hard.
I would much rather have the value of a removal and a damage late game than I would another upgrade. Like if I play,
Sure.
first of all, often I'm not going to want to play it and then use my guy. Like it's too much time.
Yeah.
I'd rather be claiming late game.
Sure.
So if I have 3 total upgrades out between 2 characters, like that's probably good enough to be sealing out the win, especially if I'm blowing out 2 to 3 damage from them
Yeah.
and doing it back to them. You know,
Yep.
it's like it's crazy.
Yep.
And it's also really good against Falcon.
I think my point is
so-
more that you can't
too.
really play it early game all that easily unless
can't.
you have a really weird start. Like I don't think that deck does well if it doesn't have upgrades. So it becomes a fairly situational card, and cards like that, I'm more of a one of kind of guy.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. For me, the reason I'm running 2 of them is because it is if it's like you're playing. I know you've been in this position. You're playing the deck, and you're near the end of the game, and you're like, all I need is a fight dirty, and I win the game, and I've got 10 cards left.
Oh yeah.
Reversal, while it does cost 3 and fight dirty only costs 1, can often be like that because it really does stall the game out, and your characters have low health, and that much mitigation because electroshock can't. See, it's something that can actually handle something before dice are rolled. You know, obviously you have to get rid of dice with He Doesn't Like You, which obviously it's a broken card, but you still have to get rid of your dice.
Yeah.
And electroshock can handle some of the bigger dice too. So
Yep.
it's really great.
It's great against the late game launch bay stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Like
In fact,
they finally save up for launch bay. You know, it's clear there's about 2 turns left. They roll their 5 damage. Their eyes light up, and you go, reversal game?
yeah. No, the game is actually over at that point.
That's real fun. So you whoop your opponents, it sounds like.
I did not whoop. They were very close games.
I want to talk real quick about the stats, because if you go to SW Destiny, the sponsor of the league, they have a whole bunch of stats there, and I'll put a link in the show notes, but it looks like... Have you seen the stats yet, Jason?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
I was going to try to have you guess some of these. I'm going to try to have you guess anyway. What do you think is the
I only saw one.
percentage of villains versus heroes if you didn't see the stats?
I think it'd be 65-35.
Yeah, I would have gone 70-30 villains. It's actually 60-40, which is fairly close. There's 46 players in the tournament. How many do you think are running Django Veers?
20.
Wow. I would have guessed not that many because I feel like all the other Django decks have sort of come up to be the top decks, but there's still 9. How many are running Ibala Django Trooper?
5.
Did you open that, or did you just guess that?
No, I'm just
Okay.
guessing. I've been throwing out numbers.
It's exactly 5. So
Nice.
5 people are running that, and then we have
This
7 people running Han Rei, 4 people running Vader Raider, and 4 people running Dooku Kylo, and it sounds like you knocked one of them out, and I'm running it, so there's a max of 3 left.
Yep, and then my buddy, oh no, he hasn't played his next round yet. I have another friend who's still in, but he's only in through 1 round.
Who is this?
He's playing Han Rei, Josh.
Josh.
You talked to Josh before.
Yeah, what is his
we were on
challenge
eight-
name, though?
I actually don't think he actually won a game. I think he just got in because he had a high ranking. He's 893.
What? His name is 893?
It's like spelled out 8 and then 93.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, I'll look for that later.
Yeah, I think he's like the 5th seed or something like that.
I see him, actually. I see him. He's
I know he's playing on Monday, so next week.
Did you say he didn't? Oh, you meant he didn't win a game in the tournament yet, not in the actual league. Gotcha.
Oh yeah. No, he won a lot of games in the league, which is why he didn't need to win a game in the
I was
tournament.
going to say, what? That's pretty weird. Yeah, okay. So that'll be fun. He's in my side, so I think I meet him in the Elite 8 if I reach that point. So for myself, I won both of my games as well. I'm playing Kylo Dooku. It went pretty well the first game. I took 1 damage in that game. It was incredibly lopsided. I can't actually remember what my opponent was playing. It just didn't go well for him. You know, there's those games sometimes where your opponent kills you pretty fast and they have a lot of removal and nothing quite goes your way. I remember he made some interesting choices that didn't quite work out. The next game was Po Rey versus my Kylo Dooku, and Kylo's special is often really iffy against Po Ray, Jason. How does that special look?
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because your opponent gets put in these horrible spots where they're discarding their good cards before you even roll him because they have multiple expensive cards in their hand. So they're like, oh my god, I got to get rid of them. And then you roll the special and they discard the other one. Then when they roll post special, they're like, well, I already discarded them all. Ah! And it's just like a lose-lose scenario for them. So he did not do well. He had a moment, right? He had a moment where we started a turn late game. Poe was dead. Ray was half dead. In my opinion, he was already well past dead. But he had 4 resources saved up. I go first, and I display against all odds, remove all his resources, and he writes, welp, that's the turning point. And I was like, I think the turning point was a long time ago.
Abandon all hope.
Blasted Poe down. But, yeah, abandon all hope is it's just a wrecking ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, that card is definitely a nut kick.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, Ray already had 3 upgrades, and so I'm going, well, I could just roll. Like, I could roll out Dooku before he rolls out his double force-throwed Ray, right? Like, that's the smart play. And I'm like, well, he's running a Poe deck, and he's got 4 resources. What if his only hope is a launch bay? Let us abandon all hope.
He actually is abandoning all hope when you play the card.
Yep, because what's he going to do? He's going to discard the launch bay he's saving for, or discard all of his money. I probably would have kept the hand. I think I probably would have kept the money at that point and hoped to draw another out, because the deck is all outs. But maybe he had them all in his hand.
But was Poe alive?
Poe was dead.
Okay, well then never mind. Yeah, you can. It depends what's in your hand, I guess. Yeah. But
I think the game was over anyway. But if he had gotten a launch bay out and rolled 5 damage for 2 turns in a row, then maybe he's got a shot at it.
And this was your first game?
That was the second game.
Oh, the second game.
Yeah, the first game I don't really remember the details except for that he didn't do any damage really. So that's it. I'm in the Sweet 16. You're in the Sweet 16. So we're on opposite sides of the bracket. So I'll see you in the finals, Jason. Is that what we're looking at?
No, we already played our finals games.
Yeah, Jason and I did play some games, and I was like, hey, I want to stream 2 games real quick, just for fun before I do my work. And Jason beat me so savagely that I was in a foul mood for like 4 hours and could barely get my work done. It was horrible.
The first game I was on the phone for the whole game, and I missed everything and still was just dicing him, and it's just awesome. I missed a ball of teak trigger even.
He played terrible. It was like, I roll. He does not respond with Django. He's just like, what? I don't know how the cards work. I just put on 70 upgrades and roll all damage and kill you. That's how the deck works, right?
The second game I played very well, and it worked out.
The game was a good game. Just didn't go quite. It's funny. This is actually a good talking point. You really need to understand how your deck works. So, like, Jason and I played a game. In the first turn, I did not get any upgrades in hand. I didn't get Holocron, so I couldn't do anything. And so I rolled damage on Kylo Ren and had to pay money to do it. And while that looks great, like, oh, Django's half dead already. From an observer, you would look at that and say, oh, that Kylo Dooku player is really whopping him. But the Kylo Dooku player knows, I'm screwed. I have 0 upgrades. Kylo is still going to die soon. A naked Dooku is not going to beat 2 gunslingers full of weapons. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's tough because on the one hand, I completely agree with you, but on the other hand, I put this to you, and this does make a lot of sense. If I were to tell you at the end of turn 2 that you would have a force choke on Dooku, and that's your only upgrade, but Django is dead and Kylo only has 3 damage, would you like that game state?
I would have to say
you would probably say yes.
I would follow up with how many upgrades do your guys have though?
Only 2. I only had 2.
Okay, yeah. So
I had an On the Hunt and an F11D on Baltic.
At that moment, it was like it could go either way, and then I believe I didn't play any more upgrades, and you went crazy and then just destroyed me into oblivion. But you're right.
That next turn was the turn where I played my 3rd upgrade on Bala, and I baited out the whole turn, and then I did a little bit of damage, finished him off. Rolled all my dice again and rolled amazingly after rerolling 2 more times. It hit Dooku for like another 6 damage.
You just pulled Bala's terrible dice, a pile of terrible dice, rolled amazing. I don't even think you had to reroll. I was like, oh my god.
No, I did. I rerolled 2 of my dice twice.
Well, you didn't have to. You had already had like.
I got the gun. I got the
yeah.
gun.
So I got whoops. We don't need to talk about that, Jason. We don't have to talk about
Finals
every game I
completed.
lose on here.
Finals already completed.
Ruins my mystique if I actually lose games occasionally. All right. Well, we do have some actual topics today. The first thing I want to talk about is a deck that we're trying to make good right now. For me, that deck has been, will be now, and always will be until Spirit of Rebellion is released, and that is Jabba Dooku. I'd be perfectly happy to make it Jabba Vader. I tried very hard to make this deck good, and it was very good before Django completely took over the meta, and before Hyperloop became a thing. Once the meta became so aggressive, I feel like control decks are in a really hard spot. So I really want to revisit Jabba Dooku next week and try to figure it out. I have, no joke, about 60 copies saved on SW Destiny DB with like different tweaks, and none of them seem quite right. I'm trying to find that balance between like how many Crime Lords, how many Ace in the Holes, how many lightsabers and flamethrowers, like how much damage do I need versus Mill versus Crime Lord? What is the right combination? I'm really struggling with it, but I really want to make it work.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jason? What's the deck that you are currently looking at as something you really want to make work?
I really wanted to make one of when the set first came out. There was one character I really wanted, and then after I looked at a whole bunch, I was like, it's kind of garbage. But then after hearing what a lot of people say, I saw this character. I looked at the dice, and I was like, that's just some good dice.
Is it Leia?
So what?
Is it Leia?
No, it's not Leia. It is Phasma.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I really want to make Phasma work. And so obviously the Guardian thing is what's most attractive. But one thing I've been trying recently, I haven't really given a lot, is Phasma Dooku. And I know that they don't really mix super well. Obviously her ability is non-existent. The dice types don't match. But one thing that's great is you're spending 15 points on each character. So this, technically speaking, should be a perfectly balanced pair of characters as far as total balance. Now, obviously, like I said, you're not getting her ability, but they actually have, other than the types, the exact same dice, except for she has a single discard or he has a double for $1.
Yeah.
And so it's a very, very consistent dice. It's very satisfying to roll those dice.
Yeah.
And you get 4 of them, and you know you can still play pretty much a blue deck with a couple of red cards squeezed in there, and I think it's really, really good. Kylo is good, and I know that. I guess just plainly, what Kylo is good, but the reality is, if you don't put upgrades on him, then is Phasma just better?
It's an interesting question.
It really is an interesting question. I think for claiming battlefields, it's worse because of your mixed damage types.
Yeah.
But your consistency and also the cost of your damage, it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
you know, obviously you fall into the trap of being in the crossfire of some hate like deflect and dodge. But it does open you up to red, and tactical mastery is nuts with Dooku if you have an upgrade or 2 on him.
Yeah. My only concern with this deck, like theoretically, I love it. The problem is I don't feel like there are upgrades in the game that support it. The only one is force training. Most of the other upgrades only have like one base side and then multiple plus sides, and so I feel like you would get in a lot of spots where it's like, dang it, I've got the base melee but the modified range this turn, and the next turn it's the complete opposite.
Well,
so
you don't have to
upgrades
run all the
looking at
ranged modifiers.
These go perfect.
You don't really have to run all the ranged modifiers, and with 4 focus dice, you actually get yourself into a lot of very advantageous positions as far as manipulating your dice to be proper.
That I can see.
That's the one thing I noticed. And I think that while it's true that it can be frustrating, that is kind of a downfall of the deck's consistency, I think that if you think about it as just those faces just do some extra damage, actually rather good. Like it actually does do a lot of work. Also, sometimes you like one time I rolled like a discard and a 2 discard, in the same die roll, and I was like, oh, take 3 cards, and they're just like, oh, that feels terrible.
Yeah, that is
And,
really good. I like that a lot.
So it's I haven't played with it enough. I'd like to try it some more. There could be a way that you build that's pretty good. There are some good red cards that are pretty fun. Unfortunately, cards like Commanding Presence are garbage in that deck because you're not playing a lot of red upgrades. You're generally just playing blue.
Yep.
But you can still put things like Sith Holocron on Phasma as well, which is pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I'd like to see you try it, see if you can make it work.
Yep.
I have a feeling it'll lack a little bit of consistency to keep it out of the top ranks, but it seems solid.
We'll see.
I think Phasma generally just is underrated. Like being able to go Phasma, Night Sister, Stormtrooper, that's just a real solid deck. It's a lot of guns, a lot of base damage guns, so you can put these upgrades on them and not have to worry you're always going to have base damage. It's hard to kill Phasma. You've got a lot of cool events. You've got a lot of cool tricks with Night Sister. I think that's a deck that I'd kind of like to keep my eye on also.
Yeah, I like that deck too.
Or Bala, either one. Bala, Trooper, or Phasma.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you want the yellow, you just choose, pick one.
Yeah, exactly. What's better? To me, okay, that's a good question. Let's just talk about that. Who's better there, Night Sister or Bala?
I like the Night Sister's ability a lot because, and it synergizes with Duggan if you ever get it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's kind of like a soft control that you don't really get in red.
For me, it's the base damage. That base damage is really good.
1 and 2.
She's got 2 sides. She also has a discard, so now you can...
Her die is better than Bala's die, I think.
Yeah, I think her die is way better. The question, though, is does it offset how much better yellow is? You get 3 of the best cards in the game, 4 if you count Hunker Down. You could add a jetpack, which would be amazing with this deck of all base damage. I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Yeah, the force powers, it might not carry enough because you won't be able to depend on putting them on your Night Sister.
Yeah, I don't think I would even play. I would probably play a Holocron just as a like, oh no, he's got Holocron. Like they'll waste some removal on it. I'm not sure I would play any force powers in that deck.
Biggest issue is that you can't actually Guardian with Bala where you can with the Night Sister.
Yep, exactly. So I think it's interesting. I think both of those decks, there's something going on there. And I guess with Night Sister, you get Deflect, which is so good right now.
Yep.
And then there's some other good blue cards that could be worth putting in. Maybe you have one against all odds. So it's interesting.
It is.
All right. So, yeah, I like that, though. I think I want to play some Phasma decks as well. I feel like at least I've sold Phasma short. I've played a couple recently, and they've been really strong. And so I'm looking at those, and I'm like,
She's got I mean, I think her die is better than Dooku's die.
Better than Dooku's die.
What's better, a single discard or
Probably.
2 for $1?
Yeah.
Probably the single discard.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Like, it's way better in a range deck and way worse in a melee deck. It's really just as simple as that. I feel like they're basically the same die.
I'm counting that their modifier types or their weapon types are the same. We're just gonna let's count them the same for now.
And that way, she's better, her dice, because there are just so many better guns.
That's true too.
So, all right. Well, there we go. Those are some decks we're working on. I really want that Jabba Dooku deck to work, man. I've put so much time into it, and I just can't quite get it there. All right. Well, the next thing I want to talk about today is a much bigger, huge question, and that is battlefields. I'm just going to make a statement right here. I want to see if you agree with that. Battlefields are the part of the game that distinguishes the top player from the good player, from the bad player, well, from the less good player, from the new player. To me, it's battlefields. That's where the distinguishing place is.
There's certainly a lot of intricacies in battlefields when it comes from your choosing of your own, the choice that you get at the beginning of the game, and then the choices that you have during the game. So the battlefield is very elegant, and it's a very well-designed concept. And I agree that the better you are at understanding its purpose and how it'll work for you, the better you will be. The better you will do.
Yeah, I had a really interesting statement that I made to somebody. I built a Ray deck, and it had in it dug in and
Defensive position.
defensive position. And someone said to me, "Hey, Tiny, I don't know. Are you really going to get the battlefield with that deck and be able to use those cards?" And my response was, "A good player will have the battlefield when he needs it."
Well, especially in a deck where you get free actions for your second character. That might be like one of the best decks at claiming battlefields and using that claim to do something, because you're playing the red, which will help you use it, and then you're having the Ray, which will compress your actions, so you can claim faster if you want to.
Yep. But I really do think that almost every game, the place where I get a huge advantage is knowing when to claim the battlefield. And it's not just simply like, okay, my opponent has one more action, it's now time to claim, right? It's much, much deeper than it. It's reading your opponent the whole game and figuring out, like, how diligent are they in claiming every one of their dice? You know, how often are they leaving dice on the table? What circumstances will they do it? And as you read that, you can figure out exactly how their brain works and when they're going to claim, and you know exactly the moment where this is the last moment to claim. If I need the battlefield, this is my moment, or I'm giving it up because I want to get, you know, X amount more actions or resolve this many more dice. And so you know the exact trade-off rather than just like a random thing where you're going like, well, I'll claim it because I want it. And then they're like, well, I was going to take 7 more actions anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is a full game of knowledge that you can use to take a greater advantage in the battlefield game. And having that first action specifically, much less the claim effect, if you look at it, it snowballs on itself, because being the first to act means if you had an equal amount of actions, you would also be the first to claim. And you get to do so much more. You get to put them behind the 8-ball, and often some of the best cards in the game actually really hate being put behind the 8-ball. Cards like He Doesn't Like You, or even a card like Backup Muscle, where you want to use it maybe because you want to squeeze stuff out, but then you're an additional action behind, which is the true weakness of a card like Backup Muscle. So those two cards that we're talking about all the time, they're very ubiquitous, very strong. They're also positionally worse if you are not taking the battlefield.
Let's talk about some other cards that really benefit from taking the battlefield first, right? So I'm going to talk about, to me, almost the most obvious one, and that's Force Throw. If you can have the battlefield and just roll out Force Throw and you roll a special, I mean, there's been times where my opponent just will go like this. Pass? First action. They're already passing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Force Throw, as far as upgrades is concerned, it is the number one upgrade to have out with the battlefield, because especially when you're getting to that point where your Jedi or your Sith or your Force user is getting that power point, you get to also put pressure on them in other ways too, because if they want to be able to handle that, they might have to use mitigation, but then you now have the option of resolving other dice that are generally very powerful, or putting them in another worse position with their resources and so on and so forth.
Yeah. What's another card for you that you just think of like this screams want to be first?
Well, like I said, I mean, He Doesn't Like You obviously is the same kind of thing as that, but for me, this is a kind of a gimme, or like a kind of like I don't want to call it a joke, but obviously, we know Django is powerful. Rolling any character who's not Django before your Django action makes Django so powerful. Because if you're just taking his dice, that's only a small subset of the dice that you have in a game. If you are using something like Politique with him and you roll out his dice first and then you roll out Django's dice, now you have a large pool of dice that you can activate before them. The same goes for Tactical Mastery. Obviously, Red has a lot of battlefield cards, but it's another card where you say, well, I get to cheat and I get to steal that advantage that having the battlefield has. I'm like, well, yeah, but what if you also rolled your opponent's dice? So when you see a Tactical Mastery, you actually, or not your opponent's dice, your friendly other character's dice. If you can actually roll to not use Tactical Mastery to gain the advantage and steal it, but to overwhelm your opponent with the ability to resolve a lot of dice before they can do anything, that is where the power comes in.
Yeah, I feel like there's nothing scarier than if your opponent has, like, say, an elite Bala with a holdout blaster and an F11, and they go first and they roll it, and it's like the +2 on
Modifiers.
Bala, a resource on Bala, the +2 on the F11, the +2 on the holdout, and you're like, well, I mean that's bad. It could be worse, but I'll just yank off whatever base damage they do, and then you look across and you're like, oh god, they have Django, so
Yep.
I am just going to be taking like 8 to the face now, no matter what. I have to actually mitigate these +2s before I can even roll anything.
Yeah, I had 2 red pistols on Django, and I roll out Bala, and he activates his guy, and I roll out Bala, and I rolled 2 +2s, and I was like, oh my god, this is it.
Yep.
So I roll out Django, and it's a no base damage. I'm like, ah. So I'm looking at my hand, and I have both a tactical mastery
Ooh.
and an unpredictable.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like,
that's disgusting.
so the question is, do I unpredictable first because it's free, giving me the option to hit a third of the time?
Yep.
Or what I could do is I could tactical mastery, roll out my Stormtrooper, and then take a 50-50 with the unpredictable on the Stormtrooper. I actually chose to do the bolder play because this got me a kill and reset Bala. I wanted to be as sure as possible.
Sure.
So I rolled out the Stormtrooper with tactical mastery, missed, unpredictable the Stormtrooper, and I got the Stormtroopers 50-50, blew up their character, reset Bala, the game was over. That was actually my first game of the tournament.
Is that guy unhappy with you?
That's just sometimes you get to do a lot of actions in a row.
Sometimes unpredictable wrecks your face. Yeah,
that's a great card.
unpredictable is that card that is really hard to deal with because it's kind of hard to play around because it's 0 cost, and I think I've lost more games unpredictable than any other card for 2 reasons. First of all, it's hard to play around when my opponent's playing it. I often use it, and John likes to make fun of me that whenever I play unpredictable, it is very predictable that it will be a terrible roll. He calls it predictable. Like I play unpredictable, he goes, "Oh, you're playing predictable, huh?"
That's such a John Bruno getting in your head kind of situation.
Yeah, it was right. It's always garbage. I don't know what the problem is. But yeah, that
Great.
card's very interesting.
Yeah, so actually, like I said, the cards that you feel like are powerful because they can take the advantage back are actually even more powerful when you have the battlefield and you can actually use them to leverage a greater advantage.
Totally agree. Another card for me that fits into that really well is Darth Vader or Luke or anyone like that just has these huge, massive, overwhelming dice that if they can roll that out and just like if you roll Vader first and you roll 2 3s, your opponent is just looking at this going, well, I mean, I don't have blocks in this deck. I haven't rolled a guy out, so I can't do he doesn't like you. I can't electroshock that. What the heck kind of choices do I even have here? It puts them in such a bind.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. If your dice are going to dictate how they spend their resources, that's very good. Obviously, all of the cards that require dice, I guess I kind of should have said that first when I said he doesn't like you, like misdirection, same kind of thing, right? So if you're playing a deck that has that, or if you're playing against a deck that has that, like claim that battlefield early to make it so that they can't misdirect you.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
If you look at their hand.
I feel like it's the most underrated card in the game just because Blue Heroes is not only not that great, but it's also hard to be super flexible with it. Like they just don't have that many guns. But Force Misdirection says, for 1, choose a symbol showing on one of your blue dice, then remove all of an opponent's dice showing that symbol. So if you have Force Misdirection and you're playing against Vader with a Kylo Saber and you just roll Rey and get the +2 garbage side, that's golden. They roll out their Vader and you just completely blow him up. Force Misdirection, when you can go first, is really crazy good.
Correct. I mean, it's a mass removal for the affordability that it has. If you can line it up, it's just so powerful.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So let's piggyback off that with the 2 obvious cards, and that is Defensive Position and Dug In.
Yes.
Defensive Position is the one I want to talk about more because if you can get the battlefield with Defensive Position, your opponent is just wrecked. Like, it's the best card in the whole game. For just destroying your opponent. I've had several games where I was playing. I was on a Vader Raider kick for a week. I like to do this, and so I played about 20 games of Vader Raider. and I played against one red deck. Well, I probably played against several, but I played against one that had played a dug in, and I knew it was playing defensive position. And I did the craziest stuff just to make sure he couldn't blow out my 2 Vader dice when I rolled them. So it would be like, roll Vader, he rolls, I have garbage, he doesn't have much, I'm going to claim late game. And the guy was just like, what the hell are you doing? You can't claim there. And finally, I was like, I got $20 that says you're holding a defensive position. And we finished the game, I beat him, and he shows me 2 defensive positions. And I'm like, there you go, man. That's why I was playing like a crazy person.
Yep. Now, defensive position is like the blowout of blowouts, too.
Yeah. Especially against something like Vader Raider, where you're all in on like just Vader's dice, rolling a good roll. It just ruins the whole turn. The turn is over.
Yep. I agree. It's a very good card, but as you said, it requires that battlefield. And obviously, there's going to be a character printed in the next set that requires you to have the battlefield to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very obvious battle for you to understand when is best to have it and when can you actually afford to give them a free Death Trooper die.
Yeah, so let's talk about just sort of some random decks that, if you're playing against them, you probably want to have the battlefield. I would say Red Heroes is one of the biggest ones because of they get dug in and defensive position. It's just too many blowout battlefield cards that you just can't let them have.
Well, also, remember when I was speaking about playing Tactical Mastery to be able to utilize a larger pool of dice?
Yep.
This is another example. Between It's a Trap and Hit and Run, they actually have even more ways than any other game or any other grouping and All In to actually really, put you in the hurt. So, for example, they roll out their let's say they're playing Akbar Double Troopers. They roll out Akbar.
Yep.
And then you roll your dice. They guardian something with one of the troopers.
Yep.
And now his dice are out there. And then you roll something else, and he goes hit and run to steal maybe another dice with the guardian.
Yep.
Now all of his dice are in play. He can play All In. He can play It's a Trap if you have a gun. And he fixes all his dice and blows up a character.
Yeah.
So if you give them the option to put more dice on the field before you, that is bad. Do not let them do that. Please, God.
Yeah. I think another really obvious one is Han Rey. They want to take the battlefield, if nothing else, to be looping those upgrades. You have to especially as you move towards the latter part of the game. Like what can happen sometimes against Han Rey is they lure you into like, battlefield doesn't matter. I'm just blue, yellow heroes. I've got nothing. It's not a problem. I don't even have anything good in my discard pile. But by the mid game, they do. And by the end game, they want to loop second chance every single turn. So it becomes this incredibly important situation where going into those, you've already established that you're getting the battlefield, you're getting the first action, you're the one finishing faster because you have that extra action. Whereas if you kind of fall into the trap of letting them just have it because it doesn't matter, now they already have an action advantage. They get more of an action advantage with Rey, and you just can't turn that ship around at that point. It's just the inertia is too much going in one way.
Yeah, you gotta play that sweet Amidala tech. So when they claim, you just use your little special and put it back in there on the graveyard.
Pretty sure you can't do that. I don't think you can be like, I'm playing Vader Raider with Amidala tech, so that you can't do that. I don't think it works like that, Jason. I don't think that's tech. I think that's a whole deck.
Okay, fine. That is a really good one. Another one that I would say is, like I said, or like you said, it's really just Force Throw, but I would say that blue heroes actually do have a lot of cards. We already talked about Misdirect. We talked about Force Throw, and their ability to kind of manipulate what you're doing at the moment is probably going to be, on the onus for them to have dice in the pool. But the Sith are just as bad, right? Because you have the Force Choke and you have the Mobilize as well to manipulate the dice that are actually out there. So when you see them have those upgrades, you want to be conscious. If you want your dice to stick, then you need to think that you need to get them out there into the pool first.
Yeah, and Blue Heroes is even worse if they have Rey, because Rey can come out of nowhere and put any die they want into the pool. And that can be a really tough thing to play around, where you're looking at the blue hero and you're thinking, like, what do they have that helps with battlefields? It's just Misdirect. I'm running a gun deck. They don't even have any guns on the table. I'm totally fine here. It doesn't really matter this game. And then they just go, Force Throw onto Rey, roll it out, special, go. and you're like, oh my goodness. If I roll anything, Django literally dies to the force throw. I have to sit here. This is not a good deal. So I don't know. I feel like it's one of the most innocent looking matchups, right? And then
Ray is always innocent looking. That's her problem.
That's what we should start calling her, the innocent one.
Innocent little Ray.
I don't do anything. I just have garbage dice. Don't worry about me. I'm fine.
Check rolls 2 fucking +2, or sorry, 2 +2s, and then she also has like another 2 from someone else like Qui-Gon, and then you're just dead.
Yep. So good old Ray. Let's see other decks. Vader Raider, of course, we already talked about it. Is one that you really don't want to have getting on top of you because they are never going to give up that battlefield, and they're going to use its ability, and they're going to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until they push you over the cliff, basically. Let's see. So what are some decks you normally don't care about the battlefield against? That's a good question.
There's some decks that like to play a long game, maybe even force you to claim your battlefield so they can just resolve 1,000 things after you're done.
Yeah.
One of those decks that I know that I've seen a lot is what people call like the artillery deck, but running multiple characters. Like 4 characters, you're already going to be activating for a very long time, but you're also playing a lot of supports. So you kind of just want to dirtle and like, I'll gain a resource with Underworld Contacts. I'll gain another resource with Underworld Contacts. I'll use the Stormtrooper, roll his 1 die. And while they're doing all this great stuff, and then you're like, are you done? They're like, yeah. And like, do you pass? And they're like, And and they're like, yeah, I'll pass. And you're like, okay, I'll do this. And they're like, I'll pass again. And you just keep doing stuff. And sometimes you can actually sneak a nice claim out, but often they'll eventually claim because they're getting worried that you're going to.
Yeah.
And then you play cards from your hand that actually let you manipulate your dice and get re-rolls and things like that. And that is very frustrating to those players because then you get to sit there and just resolve a bunch of dice in their face.
Yeah. Another deck like that is anytime you're seeing Jabba in a deck, especially if they get resources, be careful about claiming early, right? That deck is not going to do anything to you if it claims first, unless it has like a loaded up Dooku with force throws and other cool powers on it. But at any moment, they can ace in the hole you. And it's a great bluff also. If you are the Jabba deck, save up 5 resources so that you get to claim the battlefield, because they won't claim it unless they are inexperienced or have nothing and don't want to bluff it. Because even if you have 1 card in hand, you want to bluff that if you ace in the hole, I will control it.
You mean 2 cards in hand?
What I mean is the player who doesn't have ace in the hole. If I have, I want to be able to bluff that I have an answer to your ace in the hole, Crime Lord, even if I don't have one.
Yep.
So don't just claim. Another spot where you have to be a little bit careful about claiming is, and this is the most frustrating thing. So let's say you're playing against a Bala Jango Trooper deck, right? And you have a little bit of control in your hand. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit. They have garbage dice, but they have 2 cards in hand. This is one of the toughest spots I find to figure out when you're supposed to claim. Because theoretically, like let's say it's even a good claim effect. You can get some value out of it, and you're going to get to go first. And maybe you have defensive positions and dug-ins in your deck, and you really want to claim. The problem is if you claim, you may lose a character, right? They may just go, oh, I'll reroll. I rerolled the nut roll. That's game. And so it's really difficult in figuring out. Sometimes you have to play the odds. I know I had one game like that where they had 1 card in hand. I had some stuff where I really needed the battlefield to start the next turn. I needed to roll first of all, with like a double force throw character or something. But I knew that if they did their 1 reroll, they could basically win. And in that particular game, I was in such a weird spot where I had to actually claim and hope. And I can't remember if they hit or not. They must not have hit, or I would have remembered it very vividly. And it's just so interesting when you get in those spots and you're like, oh, I don't know which way is the right answer. Have you had a lot of games like that, Jason?
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough, and you're trying to do that little dance, and I know they're trying to milk it out for as long as possible, so getting that situation under control is very difficult, and it's not something that you can necessarily – it's not necessarily an amount of experience, because obviously each player is going to play it differently, but I think that it's – yeah, I think that it's a tough call.
Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting point also, that what I'm not saying is – you always want to grab the battlefield first. A great example of this is John, our friend John. He's newer to the game, and he plays the game kind of weird. He plays a Jango Trooper deck where he likes to not claim the battlefield. And what he wants to do, his goal, is to bait you into going, oh no, it's Django Trooper, I gotta be super fast. Claim, and then let him just have his way with you and be like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll play this TIE Fighter now that you can't believe I have in my deck. And now I'm going to roll that, and then I'm going to re-roll, and that's my damage.
That you can't believe I have in my deck.
Yeah, so it's, it can be interesting. That's what I love so much about this game, is that there's no really right answer. The right answer is be ready to be flexible, be paying very close attention to your opponent's tendencies, to your opponent's deck, to the type of cards they have in their deck, and be ready to adjust, to have a plan. And I can't say this enough, Jason. If I had to describe Destiny in one word, it would be flexible. That's the most important word.
No, you're right. And you have to be able to put the gas on. You have to be able to take it off and play it slow. It's the flexibility in this game is required.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we're going to move on then from Battlefields. I want to talk about one more thing that I think is kind of interesting, and that is two cards that I don't like. I play them occasionally, but I generally don't like them, and I see other people who like them a lot. And that is the IQA rifle and the basic lightsaber. And we're going to start with the IQA blaster rifle. But essentially, to me, these are the same, well, similar cards. But we'll start with the blaster rifle. It's 3 cost red. It has a 2 damage side, a +3 damage side, and a special which says deal 2 unblockable damage. So it's pretty solid. It does 3 damage. What do you think of this card generally, Jason? Do you play it in a lot of decks?
I personally only play it in mono red decks.
Okay.
Because you have to. I don't play it, for example, in any of my villain builds. Other than a mono red villain build, because it's just a little too expensive for what you get out of it. And even, unless I'm running Akbar and getting all that focus, which once again I'm probably running double trooper, so it is mono red, it's really inconsistent, and you really pay a lot of points for something that doesn't really hit that well. And its other sides are really, really frustrating to roll, because you really need a 3 cost weapon to really put the smack down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, it's just simple. Like, if all the other guns were 3, then this would be fine. But I just don't feel like this is that much more value than the other guns. And I've started doing a new thing, Jason. Because 2 and 3 sounds too close, this is how I price them. Holdout Blaster costs 200 resources. The IQA costs 300. That's a lot more, Jason. That is a ton more when you think about it that way. We
That's
get
so ridiculous.
lost in this, like, it's only 1 more, but when you only make 2 a turn, it's just so much more. If it had redeploy, I think I would play it more, but I agree. I think its sides are bad. It only has 1 base damage side, so it's like it can't even really resolve with your range damage all the time. It's like an extra action. It's unblockable, which is cool, but that can be a real negative sometimes. I just really don't like this gun.
Yeah, and that's why, like I said, I reserve it for the mono red decks, because villain at least can commanding presence it, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
But specifically heroes, you have It's a Trap, which is so strong with that card.
Yeah.
You have All In with the focuses, which is very strong with that card. You're probably running Data Pad, which is very strong with that card. So you get a lot of really good uses out of that if you are playing the mono red. But like I said, when you start playing other things, you're likely it's just not making the cut.
Yeah, I think that's important to note, that synergy sometimes is more important than value, right? If you have It's a Trap, you just want all the red dice you can get. I'm going to go on a limb, though, and say nobody will be playing this once Spirit of Rebellion hits. I just don't see anyone playing this card.
Once again, in my opinion, if you're playing mono red, I still think you'll see it, because they have so much red dice manipulation that's important. Like, if you're playing It's a Trap, this card is actually fantastic.
See, I don't think it is, because I think you're going to have even better choices once Spirit of Rebellion drops. That's my point. When you have double the red weapons,
it's not. I don't think it's going to be so simple, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see. All right.
I don't think that it's worth it when you have 2 factions of weapon options.
Yeah. Let's turn then to lightsaber, which I think is better because for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is name all the melee weapons in the game and it won't take you long. And then the second reason is it has redeploy. So both out of necessity and out of the fact that it has redeploy, it is playable. But even so, I've been finding more and more, the more time I spend with this game, the more times I cut lightsaber, even from obvious decks like Kylo Dooku or Vader Raider. Like, Vader could have this lightsaber, die, and give it to Raider, and that sounds amazing. But for some reason, I just look at this card and I'm like, I'm not paying 3 for this piece of garbage. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's worth 3, and that's actually the reason why I don't play it at all. I only play it in decks with Padawan.
I was just about to say that. With Padawan, it's great. It's just flat great.
It's the only time I'm really running it. And I guess Heroes have a little bit better reason to run it because they have garbage cards. But compared to Villain, it's true. The Villain cards, I mean, other than one with the Force, the Villain cards are just so much better. So, yeah, this is a very frustrating card. You pay a lot of points to either have to pay for the damage or have only 2 modifier damage, which is garbage.
Yep.
And it's just it's 1 shield on it. Why isn't it more? It's so frustrating. It's not good.
I totally agree. It's so funny because I made a Poe Ray deck, and I actually put a copy of it in the Poe Ray deck. And my theory was this: that Poe can use it to discard it for 2 unblockable. He could pay 1 to discard it for 3. And also, the main reason I would want to use it is like I've got a blaster on Poe. He's about to die. Right before he dies, 4-1, I just chuck a lightsaber on top of him, and it goes over to Rey. But then when you look at Rey with the lightsaber, it's just bad because she only has the modified size, and like it seems inevitable that every time I roll this with Rey, it's like +2, and Rey's other side is like a resource, and then you re-roll them all, and then they come up just as bad, and you're like, come on, Rey, just connect with your dang lightsaber already.
And once you do get it, it's only a 1, right? Yeah. Like it's only a 1 damage. Like your best case scenario is you roll the 2 modified damage and the 3 damage on the lightsaber. But that's just you're fishing for 2, 1/6s.
Yeah, and you need a resource.
Very frustrating. Yeah, exactly. So
3 for this.
This card might as well just be taped to Rey's staff, in which now you can actually set Rey and this off, but you need the Rey staff. Rey staff is incredible, by the way. That's a much better card.
Yeah, I put that on my Poe Rey deck as well. I feel like with Poe Rey, it's a really flexible card. It's either removal or damage out of hand. That sounds really good to me.
It's a great card. That's a really underrated card.
Yeah, that's. I'm going to make a whole video coming up. All the cards I was wrong about, and Rey's staff is certainly near the top.
Yep.
It's actually a pretty lengthy list. I should probably just retire from this game, Jason.
Hey, everyone, you know what? We can all change our opinions. It's not a big deal.
That's true. That's a good point. Especially when cards are new. It's a really good lesson that testing is important, right? You can't just look at a card and go, this card is bad, this card is good.
And you're not always right.
You need to test it.
No matter how good at anything you are, you're not always right. It's just not. Yep. It's not how it works,
Yeah, exactly. I'm never wrong. I just change my opinions with more data.
I see. I think Donald Trump said that once.
All right, that's going to be the show this week. Thanks so much for Jason for coming by. As always, check out swdestiny.com, our very generous host. Check out brokenegggames.com and their awesome tokens they have there for a myriad of games. Buy them all and put TG Games in your discount code coupon and let me be able to just load my bathtub full of monies. Oh, it'd be great. You can go to Patreon, Tiny Grimes, if you want to support the show. We have a bunch of good conversations going over there. And, Jason, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me around. I'm JB Flans everywhere. But the one thing I want you to know is that you can find The Smugglers Den on iTunes.
Why do I keep forgetting to say that in the middle of the show? Jeez, yeah. And if you wouldn't mind, drop a nice review of the show if you like it. If you hate the show, you know what? You don't need to make a review. It's fine. But if you love it, drop a review. It helps people be able to find the show even easier, help spread the word. That'd be great.
Absolutely. If you guys like it, that would be so huge if you go on iTunes and give us a review.
All right, guys. So thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you next time on the Smugglers Den.